I shouldn't have looked at him that way. I shouldn't have let my eyes linger, caught by the slight curve of his jaw or the calm steadiness in his gaze. But I did, and it changed everything. My name is Alex, I'm 26, and I've always thought myself a straightforward, hetero guy. Sure, I never spent much time pondering labels. Life moved too fast for that. But that day, walking into the clinic, with my stomach clenched tight in pain, everything shifted. The waiting room smelled faintly of antiseptic and lemon, chairs lined up like cold sentinels. I was hunched over, hands pressed against my abdomen, trying not to let the pain dictate me. The receptionist called my name, and there he was, Dr. Mateo. He was young, maybe in his early 30s, with eyes sharp yet gentle. His dark hair was slightly tousled, and his white coat hung loosely over a casual shirt. He didn't rush when I explained my pain. Instead, he listened, that rare kind of listening that makes the world narrow down to just you and the voice you're hearing. He asked me to describe the pain, his voice low and reassuring, his hands steady as he pressed gently on my stomach. The tension in my body eased, not just from his professional care, but something deeper, something I wasn't prepared for. "You're tensing," he said softly, and I caught my breath, trying to pull back from the flicker of something unfamiliar rising inside me. It was a moment, brief and electric, when his fingers brushed my arm, skin meeting skin for the first time, and my heart raced like it had a secret it was desperate to keep. I told myself I was imagining it. It was just a reflex, just a touch in a clinical space. But his smile, quick and shy, made it impossible to forget. The pain dulled as he started asking questions, but my mind drifted, caught between the heat of his presence and the cold reality of the clinic's walls. I wondered, not for the first time that day, what it would be like to be more than just a patient in this sterile room. "You'll need to rest," he said finally, handing me a small towel, white, soft, and folded neatly. It lay between us, a simple object that suddenly felt heavy with meaning. I caught his eyes again and quickly looked away. "Thank you," I muttered. It was the most honest thing I could say. That night, I kept the towel folded on my desk. You tell me if it was wrong to feel this. I told myself the next visit was about the pain, nothing more. Yet, as I stepped into the clinic again, the air felt charged, like the hallway was holding its breath. It was the second time I'd come back. Pain still there, but less urgent, though my heartbeat had a rhythm of its own. Dr. Mateo greeted me with his usual calm smile. He didn't ask why I was really there, didn't pry into my hesitation. Instead, he offered me a cup of coffee from the small corner machine, and for a moment, the sterile walls softened. The cup was warm in my hands, steam rising like whispered secrets between us. I noticed how his eyes caught the light in an odd way, less clinical, more knowing. I looked down at the cup, pretending not to see. Every visit since that first one kept unfolding like this. Routine checkups that felt anything but routine. Each time, the pain gave me an excuse to come back, though it was his presence I found myself needing. He didn't say much. Mostly silence filled the room, punctuated by the sounds of the medical instruments or the scribble of his pen on paper. But those silences were thick with meaning. I could feel the slow burn of something just beneath the surface, something neither of us dared to name. Sometimes he'd brush past me to grab a towel or a glass of water. That brush of his hand, the tiniest contact, would send warmth rushing through my veins. I told myself it was nothing, just professional courtesy, but I caught myself thinking about that touch long after I left. At one point, I realized I was counting the days until my next appointment. The waiting room, once a place of anxiety, had become a strange kind of refuge. I told myself it was because of him, the way he made me feel seen, even when I was at my most vulnerable. "You're holding on to that towel too tightly," Mateo said once, indicating the white towel I'd absent-mindedly clutched during an exam. It was the same towel from my first visit, left folded neatly in the clinic's corner. I let go, but the memory of his words lingered. He smiled again. It was a small thing, but to me, it was like a secret, shared. I don't know if he noticed the way I watched him, or if he felt the quickening of his own pulse when our eyes met. Everything was so careful, so restrained. The pain in my stomach was fading, replaced by a knot I wasn't sure I wanted to untangle. You wouldn't understand this kind of waiting. The ache that's not physical, but somehow just as sharp. There's a strange honesty that comes from pain, not just the kind that twists your insides, but the silent ache that seeps in through cracks you didn't know existed. That's what I started to see in him too. The third visit was different. Somehow the clinic felt smaller, or maybe I just felt smaller inside it, pressed up against realities I wasn't ready to face. Mateo greeted me like usual, but this time his eyes lingered a moment longer. He remembered my name without me saying it. He even asked how my dog was doing, something I'd mentioned briefly the first time. I was caught off guard by that. Small details, but they made the walls I'd built around myself tremble just a little. He was seeing me, really seeing me, beyond the pain or the symptoms. The appointment started like any other, but then something shifted. He handed me a glass of water, and our fingers touched fleetingly. My skin prickled. It was the kind of contact that could be ignored, but wasn't. I noticed how his hand paused, hesitating just before letting go. The silence stretched between us, thicker than ever, filled with unspoken questions and answers. I looked at his face, his jaw, the way his lips curved ever so slightly when he smiled. I felt like I was standing on the edge of something dangerous and beautiful. I told myself to stop, but it was too late. Between the sterile beeps of the machines and the soft rustle of papers, something quiet grew. A tentative thread of connection, spun from glances and the weight of unshared words. He handed me the towel again, that same simple white towel, somehow heavy with all the things we couldn't say aloud. I kept it pressed against my chest, as if it could shield me from the storm inside. "You're not alone," he said softly this time, his voice barely above the hum of the clinic. It was the first time he said something that felt like a message meant only for me. There was loneliness in those words, echoes of something fragile beneath his calm exterior. I wanted to reach out, but my fingers trembled, caught between fear and something like hope. We stayed in that moment longer than usual, the space between doctor and patient, bending, blurring. He smiled again. I don't know if he understood the effect he had on me, or if he saw the cracks starting to show in my voice when I answered him. But I knew, in that slow burn of a glance, that things were changing. If you had been there, you'd see how small moments held the weight of everything. One night, the pain flared unexpectedly. I called the clinic, my voice barely steady, and Mateo answered. His calm was an anchor, the one thing that kept me grounded when my world spun out of control. He invited me in, though it was late. I arrived to find him waiting, eyes tired, but steady. The clinic was quiet, shadows softened by the dim light of the desk lamp. A private world, away from the clinical chill of the day. He didn't rush, didn't treat me like a patient alone. Instead, he moved with a care that made me breathless in a way unrelated to the pain. The towel from my first visit lay folded on the desk, a silent witness to this night that promised nothing and everything. We spent hours there, not speaking much. I felt his presence filling the room, the steady sound of his breathing like a balm. The small noises, notes being scribbled, the soft rustling of fabric, were loud in the quiet. I let down walls I didn't even know I was holding up. In the vulnerability of that night, the distance between us lessened. It wasn't about words. It was about being there, together, in the stillness. He listened, as if every breath I took was a secret he was entrusted to protect. Every glance, every subtle touch was weighted with meaning. I was discovering that trust isn't built in grand gestures, but in moments like this. When the pain finally eased, I felt something else shift beneath the surface, a slow, cautious opening, like a door left unlatched inviting, but uneasy. He smiled again. Again. The towel changed, meaning then, it became a thread connecting us through the night. I could still feel its softness against my skin, a reminder that care wasn't just medicine, it was presence. I stayed longer than necessary, reluctant to leave the fragile peace between us. You tell me if it was wrong to want more than relief. The hallway outside the clinic had a sharp, cold edge that night, but inside, my heart felt like it was about to burst through my ribs. I was standing there, waiting for Mateo to finish his notes, when he looked up and caught me off guard. "Why do you keep coming back?" His voice was gentle but curious, the kind of question that felt like it could unravel everything or stitch it together. I swallowed hard. The words caught somewhere between my throat and my mind. I shouldn't have told him. I was supposed to be the patient, not the one laying my soul bare. I don't know, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Maybe because it's the only place I feel something different. Because you make me feel... I trailed off, embarrassed by the confession. He didn't interrupt. Instead, the silence stretched, charged and fragile like a thread, pulled tight. "You're afraid," he said finally, his eyes searching mine. "Of what?" I looked down at the towel in my hands. The same white towel, now worn, but still soft. It wasn't just a towel anymore. It was a symbol, a witness, to nights filled with unspoken truths. "Afraid of feeling wrong," I confessed, my voice cracking. "Afraid of wanting something I've never wanted before." He stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from him. His hand brushed the back of mine, gentle, hesitant. "You're not alone in that," he said. "It's messy and confusing, but it's real." For the first time, I saw the vulnerability hiding behind his calm facade. There was pain there, too, a fear of judgment, of crossing lines that shouldn't be crossed. We stood in the quiet hallway, two men holding on to truths that scared us, but also freed us. The towel slipped from my fingers and fluttered to the floor, unnoticed. He smiled again. Again. I realized then that this was more than just a hospital visit. It was the beginning of something fragile and raw, something I needed, but wasn't sure I deserved. You tell me, was it wrong to fall when all I wanted was to heal? That afternoon felt like any other, yet the air was charged with a tension I couldn't ignore. The hospital room was quiet, untouched by the bustle of the ward outside. Mateo was there, quietly adjusting the IV drip, his movements unfamiliar in their casualness, so unlike the precise professionalism I was used to. I held the towel, the one that had traveled with me from the first day, folded neatly, but now worn, softened by time and emotion. It rested on my lap, like a fragile token between us, a silent language speaking volumes we hadn't dared voice. Our eyes met again, unguarded this time. I felt the heat of his gaze, the restrained breath, the subtle shift in the air. It was a moment suspended in time, intense, electric, and heavy with unspoken desires. His hand reached out, tentative, brushing against mine, the touch feather-light, but it ignited something deep within me. I didn't pull away. Instead, I let the warmth spread, flooding through the fears and doubts I'd carried for so long. He smiled again. Again. It was the smallest movement, yet it was a confession more truthful than words. It said, "You are not alone. We are more than these roles that bind us." This touch was not just comfort, it was revelation. I felt the vulnerability between us crack open and the weight of years of silence lift, replaced by a fragile peace. After that touch, nothing was ever the same. As the afternoon sun filtered through the window, casting soft light across the room, I realized that this moment, this quiet intimacy, was not an end, but a beginning. A slow burn awakening to a truth I could no longer deny. Silence was an answer too. You tell me, was that touch a mistake or a release?